गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन। अभी तक हमने इस चैप्टर में पढ़ा कि क्या एथिकल डिलेमा का मतलब होता है, व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ एथिकल, व्हाट आर द एथिकल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट फॉर द एम्प्लॉयज। ओके, नाउ द टॉपिक इज हाउ टू रिजॉल्व एन एथिकल प्रॉब्लम. The issues involved in understanding ethical problems can be split into three categories: factual, conceptual, moral. Now, how can it be resolved? So there are some steps in resolving ethical problems. Step one, gather the relevant facts and identify the problems. If there are conflict of values or rights or professional responsibilities, for example, there may be an issue of self-determination of an adolescent versus the well-being of the family. So first आपका step क्या रहेगा? Problem identify करना. Okay. Second step is consider the ethical issues involved. That is, what meanings and limitations are typically attached to these competing values. For example, rarely is confidential information held in absolute secrecy. However, typically decisions about access by third parties to sensitive content should be contacted with clients. Third step is identify which fundamental principles are affected. जैसे एग्जाम्पल हमने दिए, what are the threats to compliance with the fundamental principles of integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, professional behavior? Have you considered the following threats: self-interest, self-review, advocacy, familiarity, intimidation? If so, are the threats to compliance with the fundamental principles clearly insignificant? Are there safeguards which can eliminate or reduce the threats to an acceptable level? Profession, legislation and regulation, work environment, individual. Then step 4 is refer to the organization internal procedures. Jesse, does your organization's policies and procedure provide guidance on the situation? How can you escalate concerns within the organization? Who should be involved, in what role, and at what stage? Step 5 is consider and evaluate alternative courses of action. Organizations' policies, procedures, and guidelines, applicable laws and regulations, universal values and principles generally accepted by society, consequences. Step 6 is implement the course of action and monitor its progress. When faced with an ethical issue, it may be in your best interest to document your thoughts, processes, discussions, and decisions taken. Written records will be useful if you need to justify your course of action. Okay, so these are some steps by which you can resolve the ethical dilemma. जैसे सबको कंबाइन करें, सबकी समरी निकालें, तो सबसे पहला मतलब है कंसिडर द ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल. ओके, फिर कंसिडर द कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस फॉर ईच ऑप्शन, देन एनालाइज एक्शन, decision making and commitment, and evaluate the implemented decision. Okay, so these are the main steps by which you can resolve the ethical dilemma. Again, how to resolve ethical dilemmas. Two basic approaches are possible in resolving ethical dilemmas. एक होती है deontological and teleological. Deontological जिसको हम बोलते हैं action oriented approach. An ethical standard consistent with the fact that it is performed by a rational and free person. These are inalienable rights of human beings and reflected the characteristic and defining features of our nature. These fundamental moral rights are inherent in our nature and are universally recognized. Second आती है teleological, that is result oriented ethics. The moral character of actions depends on the simple practical matter of the extent to which actions actually help or hurt people. Actions that produce more benefits than harms are right. Those that don't are wrong. Center for Ethics and Business offers a brief three-step strategy in which both the deontological and teleological approaches converge. Okay, so again, step 1 is analyze the consequence. Step 2, analyze the action and then make a decision. Okay, now steps in resolving ethical dilemmas. Step 1, determine whether there is an ethical issue or and dilemma. Is there a conflict or values or rights or professional responsibilities? 2, identify the key values and principles involved. What meanings and limitations are typically attached to these competing values? 3, rank the values of ethical principles which, in your professional judgment, are most relevant to the issue or dilemma. What reason can you provide for prioritizing one competing value or principle over another? Fourth, develop an action plan that is consistent with the ethical priorities that have been determined as central to the dilemma. Fifth, implement the plan utilizing the most appropriate practice skills and competencies. Then reflect on the outcome of this ethical decision making process. तो मेनली आपका सबका आउटकम जो जाता है, समरी जो जाती है टू रिजॉल्व द डिलेमा. फर्स्ट आप प्रॉब्लम को समझो, व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम, एनालाइज द प्रॉब्लम, ओके, देन आफ्टर टेक द डिसीजन, ओके, और फिर इवेल्युएट द इम्प्लीमेंटेड डिसीजन. उसको भी जब आपने इम्प्लीमेंट कर लिया है डिसीजन, देन उसको लास्ट में क्या करो, इवेल्युएट करो. ओके, so student, there are some questions for your assignment. Let's say how to resolve ethical problem, how to resolve ethical dilemmas, explain steps in resolving ethical dilemmas. Okay, so ये आज हमारा चैप्टर फिनिश होता है. Okay, so thank you everyone.